Hey everybody, today I'm going to review Makita's XAG03 4.5-inch cordless angle grinder. Now this particular model does have a brushless motor, and when you couple that with the lithium battery packs, it means that it's going to be very efficient, very powerful, and the batteries are going to last for a very long time. Now what they're really going for with this model is corded performance and a cordless tool, and what we're going to do is really put that to the test. You know, many people could use an angle grinder places where they don't normally have power, so to have something that does run off a battery pack could save you a lot of time and a lot of money. Now what I want to do in this video is give you some closer-up looks at this. We're going to see some of the typical applications where you would use an angle grinder. Then we're going to do extensive runtime testing to see how it's actually going to perform. Here's a closer look at the grinder, and I do want to point out that the dark blue portion is going to be a very hard plastic. This black portion is going to be a softer rubber overmold extending the entire way around the grip. The handle can be installed on the left-hand side or right-hand side depending on how you're using it. And then the battery pack is going to be on Makita's standard slide rail system. You'll press this white button down to release it. You can pop it off of there, recharge it, and then slide it back into place. When you hear the click, it's going to be ready to go. Comparing the new brushless XAG03 to the older XAG01 brushed model, you can see that the older model is going to be slightly shorter, coming in at just over 13 inches high at the top of the grinding disc. At the top of the grinding disc on the brushless model, it's coming in at just over 15 inches high, or roughly 2 inches higher. The other thing to point out, the brush model is slightly lighter, coming in at 5 pounds 9 ounces, with a 4 amp hour battery pack, as well as a grinding disc installed. The brushless model, with that same configuration, is coming in at 6 pounds. On the outside, the brushless model is going to have 3 main advantages over the older model. Number one, the grip on it is going to be a much more sleek design. It's much more narrow than the older brushed model, and it's much easier to hold on to. The intake vents for the fan down here on the brushed model does not have any sort of a screen, and it's going to suck in debris as you use it. With the brushless model, it has removable wire mesh screens. They can easily be removed and cleaned, and it's not going to let debris into the motor and then really burn anything up. And finally, the other nice feature of the brushless model over the brushed model is the fact that it does have a battery status indicator. With the older model, you really had to guess as to how much power you had left. But the new brushless model is going to show you in real time what the power status is of the battery pack. Depending on how you're using the grinder, Makita does include 2 different protective guards along with it. Now you can see one has an open bottom design. That's for grinding discs. But if you are using cutoff wheels, then you will want to use the guard that has the complete enclosed bottom design. When it comes to using the guards, they are going to slide on the grinder exactly the same way, with one major design difference. The one with the open bottom that you would use with grinding discs does have a quick release lever. You can pop that open, move the guard left to right, and then lock it back down very quickly. Where the completely enclosed bottom, that's designed to be used with the cutoff wheels, must be adjusted with a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. It does not have that same quick release mechanism. It will move left to right exactly the same way, but first you'll need to loosen it up with the number 2 Phillips, move it where you want it, and then tighten it back down. The grinder is going to feature a slide lock switch that you'll just press forward, it's going to click in place and automatically power it up. Now at this point you can focus on your grinding and there's no paddle to hang on to like some paddle switch grinders. And then as soon as you're done, you'll just bump that switch, it's going to pop down, automatically killing power to the motor. Now some people may not like that because they worry about it accidentally cutting on them. But let's say you're carrying this from one job to the next and something bumps this into the on position and you don't realize it. When you get to your job and you take your battery pack and you plug it in, Makita does have a protection built in place that's going to prevent this from automatically turning on. So you can see even though we are in the on position, the motor did not turn on because of that protection. All we'll need to do to reset that is to turn it off and then slide it back on to power the unit up. If you notice when I started that up, it did not immediately go to full speed, and instead it does have a soft start built in. And that means it's going to start at a lower RPM and automatically ramp up to the maximum RPMs of 8,500. The other nice thing about this is the fact that Makita does have something called an automatic speed change built into it. And let's say you're grinding really heavily on some metal and it feels the motor bogging down. It's automatically going to add additional power to the motor to get you through whatever you're working on. And to see when that's actually activated, down here on the base you can see the battery symbol and then a little circle next to it. Those are all LEDs. The battery is going to tell you what the charge of the battery is. However, the LED next to it, when you see that lit up, it means that that extra power is being applied to whatever you're grinding on. Lastly, I do want to show you how to change the grinding wheels on this. And the first thing you'll always want to do is remove the battery pack. That way you don't accidentally cut the grinder on, hurting yourself. Now if you notice on the top there is a black button right here. That's actually the spindle lock button. So you can press down on that and then rotate the disc until it catches. When it does catch, you're going to feel it drop down about another 1/8 of an inch. It's going to lock into place. And then using the wrench that comes along with it, you can line the 2 tabs up with 2 of the holes in the nut, stick them in, and then just rotate it counterclockwise. This is going to break it free. As soon as the tension breaks free, you can go ahead and spin it the rest of the way off by hand. Now let's say this grinding disc was wore out. You can go ahead and put a new one on, slide it on exactly the same way, and then put your nut on exactly the same way. Because with a grinding disc, you'll notice on one side of the nut, it does have a raised lip. On the other side, it's completely flat. Now, as far as the grinding disc goes, you never want to put the flat side down. You always want to put that raised lip down to give it extra support. But if you aren't using something as thick as the grinding disc, and let's say you're using a flap wheel, you'll put that on exactly the same way. But then instead of having the part with the little lip facing out, what you're going to do is put the flat part facing down with that raised lip facing up. This is going to force the 2 nuts together, and it's also going to make sure that the flap disc doesn't go anywhere on you. As soon as you do bottom it out, you'll take that same wrench, line it up with 2 of the holes, give it a little twist until it's tight, and then you're going to be ready to go. One of the most common uses for an angle grinder is grinding metal. So I have a piece of 3/4 inch plate steel clamped to the jaw horse, and we're going to see what type of performance the Makita is going to give us. Using a flap disc, you can grind metal or even clean up the edge of a piece of pipe before you weld it. And I can just pop a cutting disc on here and cut right through the 3/4 inch plate. Now for a runtime test, I have a fully charged 4Ah battery pack, and I'll be using Makita original slicer cutting discs. What we're going to be cutting through is 1/2 inch rebar, and we're going to see how many cuts we can get done on just one charge. But I do want you to keep in mind one thing. As these discs wear out, I will be changing them, and at the end we're going to count up how many cuts it did, but we're also going to see how many discs it went through. Okay, we used a total of 6 discs and we got 43 cuts through 1/2-inch rebar on one 4 amp hour battery charge. For a second runtime test, I'll be using those same Makita original slicer discs, and this time we're going to be cutting through 1/2-inch EMT conduit. Now, like before, we're going to keep count of not only how many cuts we get on a battery charge, but also how many discs we go through. $153 cuts through 1/2-inch EMT conduit and using 6 total discs on one 4 amp hour battery charge. For the final runtime test, I'm going to be using a tuck pointing attachment. We have another fully charged 4 amp hour battery, and I'll be using a 4.5-inch tuck pointing disc. This is going to remove all the mortar between the bricks, and what we're going to do at the end is count how many bricks that we got through, and we'll see exactly how many feet of mortar it can do on just one battery charge. It made 25 cuts, 7.5 inches long, so it did a total of 187.5 inches. You divide that by 12, it's coming in at 15.6 feet on one 4 amp hour battery charge. So now you've seen Makita's XAG03 4.5-inch brushless angle grinder for yourself. It's very comfortable, it has a ton of power, and most importantly, you'll be able to get a ton of work done on just one charge. Now throughout all the runtime testing that I did, we were using 4 amp hour battery packs. But if I had used the newer 5 amp hour packs or even the newly announced 6 amp hour packs, those run times would have been even higher. Now you do want to keep in mind when the battery does run out of power and you slap it on a Makita charger, it's going to come back to a full charge faster than any other brand. In my testing, the 4 amp hour packs went from fully discharged back to fully charged in roughly 35 minutes, where most of the competition is at well over an hour with the same size batteries. Now if you ever do run into a problem with this, the tool, the battery, and the charger is going to be covered with Makita's 3-year warranty. So if you contact them and it's within that time frame, they're going to fix it for you free of charge. If you like this video, please click like. If you like my channel, please click subscribe. And thanks for watching.